Hi, guys. It's Michael. I'm here with the Pets Journey, and I'm so excited for today. We have the most incredible guest today, and it's something that touches every pet parent's heart. We all have pets, and through their lifetime, they transition sooner than we do, always. And so then we get another pet. But along with that, we have that bond and we have that love that we just create with that being. And so today's guest is Karen, and she's here to talk about, the title of the show is Grief, the Journey Continues, because once we lose our pet and our pet transitions, we don't lose them. They stay with us, and that's the journey continues. And with that, I would love for Karen to introduce herself, talk about what she does, and give us an insight to how you see this.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be here today. And so I'm Koryn. I'm the founder of the Parted Paw in Toronto, Canada, all the way in freezing cold Canada. And I work with pet parents and pet care professionals with and in around grief and the loss of their pets and the challenges that they have. Navigating their loss and anticipatory grief, understanding the world of life post passing and how that affects everybody in such a deep and profound ways. And we learn how to integrate our grief into our life and learn to move with our beloved pets, because in reality, we can never move on. And that's a little bit about what the Parted Paw touches on and works with.
I love that. What inspired you to get in this area?
Yeah, thanks. So it's interesting. I've actually been working with pets and families and industry for 15 years. I'm an entrepreneur in the pet space. This is my second company. And my first one was dedicated to walking, boarding, training, dog sitting, all things in that area. And then in 2021, my family went through a trauma and my sister passed in quite a horrible way, actually. It was actually her passing and the support I received that informed how lacking the support was for pet loss when my soul dog, Georgia, died. And it was really interesting, and it was a really big learning, and it was all of the things you can think of. And I just thought, we have to do this differently. And I went back to school, I got all my certifications, and here we are today at the Parted Paw.
Well, I always love to hear the journey of like how someone gets to where they are today, because like today doesn't mean tomorrow either, because you could be in a completely different space, tomorrow, just given the circumstances of the universe. So let's talk about grief. Like, what happens after the first wave of grief?
Well, that first wave is also just, it's really important to touch upon too, because I think it's really discredited. So, and it's
As I
interesting.
just did.
No, but it's
Right?
like, but it's so valuable that you did that for the context of our conversation. So ostensibly, thank you for that, because it's such a shock to our nervous system. It's such a shock to our core sense of identity and self. It's such a shock to our entire routines and ability to function outside of our home. So that first phase of grief actually informs what happens after. And so what happens is, once we are able to find some sort of footing and grounding around our loss, we're able to actually look into how we are disconnected from the world around us, in what specific ways, because of the loss we just endured. What are you thinking? Tell me, there's thoughts happening. I want to know.
Well, I have a friend that she had just lost two of her dogs,
I'm so sorry.
and they were brother and sisters, and they're from the same, family. And so that's why they kind of went one right after the other.
Yeah.
And I look at her and I see how deep it's hit her. So when you say like when we look to see where we're disconnected and all that, can you go a little deeper with that so I can understand that a little bit clearer?
Yeah. So it's this is a term that I don't love for the name of this chart, but it's really, really valuable. It's called the transformation wheel of life, excuse me. And this wheel actually breaks down our lives into 8 different parts, from like family, friends, finances, work, well-being, social. Like those are a few of the examples. And as we look at each of those parts, and as we begin to identify ourselves in them, we can actually understand how our pet has affected where we are now in each of those parts. And yeah, tell me, what are you thinking?
Well, it's pretty intense because, like, I know for her, it's in, I'll probably use her as an example because it's just happened. I've never seen someone be hit so hard with it, and she has separated herself from a lot of people around her. And I think that's self care in one sense, but I also think that we deprive ourselves sometimes of the support of others when we do that. So I've like right now personally, I'm like I back off and I'm just letting her have her space and all that. But I just like I want to hold her and I want to hug her. So can you explain that craziness that I'm feeling and why and how people get through that are around supporting people that have just gone through this or going through this?
So first of all, that's so beautiful that you feel that way and that you're so inclined to support her. And what I'm hearing in the not knowing, let me know. So to be able to support somebody who's so vulnerable to themselves from a loss, such as pet loss, is to become very vulnerable in ourselves. Like as you, the person, is to show up in that uncertainty of not knowing what to do. Right. So there's
Right.
something that's really that people have a real challenge with doing, because end of life is awkward. It's inherently and fundamentally awkward. This is not something how we are designed to know what to do or support. And then conversely speaking, I haven't spoken with her, so I can't say what's happening in her internal network of emotions, but for whatever reason, she has chosen to feel the need to be alone right now. Okay. So in order to support this, the first thing is to care, which I'm hearing from you immensely. And you'd be surprised how many people, I don't think through bad intention, I have to say, I don't think I have this lens where nothing is through bad intention. And I have to believe that. But how people often negate the depth of emotional, mental, and physical strain that pet parents go through, right? So I think that's one reason why that happens, is it just gets brushed away like, oh, it's just a pet, right? So
Right.
I would encourage those people to actually clue in to this is a real loss, that pet loss grief is real and somebody's really struggling. And let's say they're in a place where you are and you've acknowledged how real it is. I would suggest going beyond your own boundaries. Taking yourself outside, and I don't mean boundary in a bad way here, but I mean your boundary of vulnerability and fear of doing it. Go outside and put yourself out for her. And it's not to say that you're not doing it, but I bet it's like you catch flies with honey, right? Be the honey.
Love that. I love that. That's a great term. Yeah.
Right. So that's what you do. You call, you go over, you show up with, it's really hard to say to somebody, what can I do? How can I help? That can often put a grieving person in freeze mode, because now you're stacking decisions on them that they just can't mesh with in their own life at all. So action behind uncertainty is very valuable.
Beautiful. Okay, I'll put myself out there more. Definitely. Well, and I want to go over there. I'm like, hey, what are you doing today? And she shuts that door down really quick. So I understand she doesn't know how to just allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you feel like? So that's another thing, like, your friend, right? So so there's always this opportunity to ask yourself, what would something horrible has happened. She's deeply affected. Let's take both of those. Let's put them aside for right now. This is my friend. More than anything, this is my friend. What would she relate to? And that can be like a really strong place to be operating from for people who don't know what to do.
I'm writing that one down. Okay. Okay. So, and for me, it's like how I feel about it is like, because she's one of my best friends, it's like those, her two dogs are my two dogs. I was there when they were puppies, when she went out of town, she's like, Michael, I don't trust anybody but you come stay at my house and stay with my, and so
Yeah.
I would stay at her house and just take care of them. And then they would always identify with me and just love me. And so it's just like, I just feel that connection too, because I feel like part of that, I feel grief with their loss as well, and I'm like, totally, and I totally identify that. So, yeah, so I'll put myself out there more and just kind of reach out to her, and just see how.
Yeah, because I think you do put yourself out there quite a bit. So I think I have no doubt that you're a very warm person, because that's the sense that you give. So maybe it's like I didn't mean to, if you internalize putting yourself out there in a negative way, that wasn't the way that I meant it, because I believe that you would, right? So more that it's just stepping beyond not knowing into action.
Well, it's cute that you say that, because it's like at first I'm like, oh no, I'm not putting it as negative, but it's like I wasn't taking it as negative. I was looking at myself and I'm like going, well, I could have done this, more. I could, now my mind's like, yeah, of course we do that. We automatically go there and say, I could have done this or would have done this, but now I just know where it's nice to have this conversation, with you and understand where you come in with this whole knowledge base that you have. So, getting back to the first question we were talking about, what happens after the first wave of grief? And you're like, wow, that's a great, line, because there's so much before that. So let's start there. So getting back to starting back where we were, so after the first wave of grief, how do you see people move from that first wave? Or how do you
It's
what do you
really valuable. Yeah. Sorry, keep going. Let me know what you were
No,
having.
I was just like, what have you found that has been like, because I know, like, when for me, it's like I started a business, Pet Wellness, and like over the, year or 2 years, I start to learn, oh, I could do this better. I could do this. So I'm sure that happened with you as well. Like you went to school, you came out, you started meeting with people and you started working with people, and along your way, you may have thought, in the beginning, like, what is that first part? Or maybe you didn't even identify that first part. Now you know that there's that first part before, after. So what has changed with you, and how did you, and where do you find yourself today, and like really understanding that with the person? And I know that's a lot.
I love it. No, I love all these questions, because you're so right. The life of an entrepreneur is you start a company, and then it's, 6 months in, what the idea has completely shifted, and then 2 years in and you've shifted again. So one thing that I've noticed is that acute grief, so that first time, it's actually a good idea to take a few days before we step into session with one another, because it's such a shock to every single part of you. It can be hard to sit and talk about what you're actually feeling. So for some people that's really needed, and I do refer to that as a grief and relief session. And it's just, there's a lot of tears from both of us, or from a couple or from a family, because I do, one-on-one couple and family work. And something else that I've learned has been really, really vital and helpful while in session with clients dealing with grief is there's a modicum of bravery pet parents go through in this first week to moving with, where they actually confront their guilt, and they confront their decisions, and they confront their litmus of what if, I should have, I could have lists. And there's a really immense transition that happens from addressing that to furthering along in an elevation of your grief to peaceful, loving memory of your beloved pet who has passed. So that can be 3 sessions, that can be 4 sessions. And going into that, and finding clarity and actually speaking about every single what if, I should have, I could have list is so valuable and vital, for pet parents. So I found that to be extremely helpful.
Well, that's interesting. That list, it's like, that's probably something that you work with them, is creating that list for them so they can see each one of those.
It's, a lot of this, it's an honor to sit with people in this space of such, trauma. And a lot of it is my job is to hold up the frame for them and really create safe space and, reality. Grief is sugar-coated a lot, which is great and really needed. It doesn't always address the emotional aspect of
the intensity behind it. Yeah.
Right. Grief is also collapsed into one word, and grief is dozens and dozens and dozens of words in grief, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to hold up the frame and help people figure out what that is, and then find practical solutions and understanding, and then integrate that in positive ways is a big honor to be able to do that. So that area of I should have, I could have, and their guilt is immense.
Wow. Yeah. And I love this. This is why I do this, is to hear this and to learn this, and because like you're on the front lines here, with people and the loss and all that, and working with people and just getting them to what happens after. And, and because like, as a designer, I design celebration of lives for humans, and I love that.
Yeah.
I loved, where we bring people together and we get to celebrate their life versus like, I remember as a little kid always going to the funeral home and I'm sitting in a room and everybody's crying, and I was just like, I just didn't, for me, I just couldn't get that,
Yeah.
And so I've always like, let's celebrate their life. Let's remember those memories that we had, let's do all that. So what you're kind of saying is like, once you get through this list and all this, and then you can identify all those different things, and then you can identify the celebration. Is that what you're kind of saying?
That's right. And I love that you do the celebration of life. And I love that you've put it in this conversation, because first of all, end of life is for the living. Like if there's one message, I mean, I have many messages that I want to convey, let's be honest. But if there's like end of life is for the living, and end of life for pets is equally as valid as end of life, period. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now we're going into definition and language, meaning if you actually go into the language of grief from bereavement, which is to be torn apart by loss of life, there's no distinction between what kind of life.
Right.
Like the language of this time of life is open intentionally. It's society that's closed it. So again, like the fact that you do this end of life work is beautiful, and to have it be placed here in this conversation with grief from pets is so wonderful and valid, because you're right, that is, by dealing with this thing called grief, is how we celebrate the life of our pet, and we have to get there.
Mm-hmm.
We have to
get there.
We have to get there. And so it's like memorialization is often attuned or attributed to the third tier, which is mourning, which becomes the celebration. But before then, we have to be grieving, and then before then is grief. Like
So like, if you, from your, like you're talking about the wheel of life of 8 parts and all that, is that kind of, do you have a wheel of transition? Yeah. Of grief. Have you ever thought of, I mean, like,
I have.
I know,
I have.
Yeah, I'm sure you have it, yourself. Like we've talked about this before, how our brains work, right? So you're like, So yeah, share that with us.
It's so beautiful because you see what you're speaking about, and through working with clients happens so organically. And I know when this happens, there's benchmarks around it, is what I can speak towards. This is what the first thing that's come to my mind is often, and this is interesting, hesitation to leave grief.
Wow.
Yeah. And is this how I know we're changing? Your grief is expanding and you are now grieving. I'm going to get emotional just thinking about it because it's so beautiful. It's like there's such a deep connection we have to this loss, that to leave this sadness from the loss becomes sad.
Yeah, because a lot of people feel like they're leaving the person or the pet or whoever, right? And they don't want to do that. And they're like, they have that guilt almost, right?
That's right. This is how layered and nuanced pet loss grief is, by the way. I just want to like put that out into the ether of the land, okay? Because part of the reason why it's important to say this is because when a human passes, and by the way, God forbid anybody should pass, okay? Carte blanche. But we have, we have ceremony, we have funeral, we have religion, we have family, we have friends, we have bereavement, we have time off work, we know what's happening, we have great, and on and on. So the grieving process because of that is different than what you're going to get from the grieving process from pet loss, because we don't have that.
Right. It's
changing, and we are getting there. There is a funeral home in Toronto called Tales Farewell. She is incredible. That the owners and that place is incredible. We have cremation options now, but the ceremony and the function and the action of end of life really doesn't exist for pet loss and grief, which is why it's so hard.
Well, and that's why I just, I'm so honored to have met you and you've reached out to me and we get to have this conversation, because this is creating that for people, is like creating that knowledge and the awareness that we are there to support them. And there are people like yourself now coming into the pet industry and just saying, hey, it's a being. Let's support them just like we support humans, and let's support this process the same way.
100%. I'm so grateful to have met you too. Like, you're first of all, such a lovely person in your entirety, and also to be able to feature the Parted Paw and my grief work. I'm so appreciative. It's so vital for so many.
It's so important. I see it all the time, because like in our business, we do wellness for pets, and we have this, we actually have, it's sitting right on my desk. We have this one formula here, and it's called Digestion Eat, right? And when people order this formula, a lot of times I could tell that they're entering into transitioning pets, because the first thing a pet does is when they get ready to transition, they stop eating, they slow down and they stop eating. And the pet parent starts to like, what's going on? So they grab this, and this actually, this formula, the reviews, when people get it, it gives them a little more time, or and it gives them a little more. It's amazing. So I see this all the time. And then when that transition happens with my clients with their pets, they reach out to me and they let me know, and they send pictures, and it's just like, of their pet. And so then I just like, and I'll spend time with them on the phone. And that's why I just love, you and what you do, because like now it's like, like I passed your information on to my friend, and it's like, they have to get to, like you said, they have to get to that point to be able to do that. You know what I mean? They have to go through whatever they're going through and then start to grieve. And at that point, I think that's when they reach out to you.
They reach out. Anticipatory grief is often really undermined and under-acknowledged. It's like you're saying with your product there. First of all, I love everything you're doing. I just want to say that. And I did a deep dive on your website, and the way you've communicated, Eastern philosophy and service into your ethos and company, I think, is phenomenal. And you've made it really understandable and very easy
Thank
to
you.
understand. And that's really hard to do. So good on you, first of all. And yes, so in addition to that is they call after, my clients call right when their pets have passed. And I'm one of my certifications is I'm also a certified end of life pet doula. So I'm able to work with clients in anticipatory grief. And a major pillar of the Parted Paw is to be actually able to change the way end of life happens entirely from the onset of anticipatory grief for pet parents. Because when we have an awareness that something isn't quite right, or when we are edging towards end of life, and let's say, your digestive, product is needed, that actually is the time to start saying, hey, what's happening here? Do I have to do a quality of life scale? Is now the time, to address the hard things in advance is to create the best case scenario for something that is so impossible and for the greatest care for your pet, as well as for you being the pet parent. So to be able to change that entire trajectory changes grief as we do it for pets, for pet parents, and end of life for pets at large.
Well, I love that we're talking about this because, my mom had lung cancer and, she was given a certain time to live. And, I was living in Chicago. I came back to LA to be with her. And, during the last probably 3-4 weeks, we had someone with us, a hospice lady,
Yeah.
right? And I got to spend so much time with her, and it made such a difference for me in understanding the process that as it was going on, I was able to go, okay, here we are at this step. Here we are at this step. Okay, now this is going to happen. Now we're going to bring their friends in to say hello and say, and their wishes and all that and have that moment and then this moment. And it really made it such, and I say this to friends and friends kind of look at me for a second like this. They're like, what? It was actually a really beautiful process that we went through and such a loving process. And, at the end, she transitioned in my arms and it was like such an
Wow.
incredible experience. And it was just like, I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have someone like yourself there walking me through it.
First of all, I'm so sorry your mom is no longer here. Um, and I also love that you just referenced the word beautiful with end of life. How beautiful is that? And to have that clarity and that peace that you found around it, and to have had that knowledge, so you just said that changed your entire trajectory. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, can you imagine anything different now that you've had that experience?
No, I would even expand on that experience now.
How so?
It was like, I feel like me being who I am and being open and experience, and just whatever life brings us, it brings us. And so I feel like, you know, my sister didn't get the full understanding of it. My dad didn't get the full understanding of it. And it's just like, I would have kind of herded them in a little bit more and say, hey, you guys, we need to really sit down and have a conversation here so that we can share this experience together in our own ways, but together.
I think it's really important what you're speaking about right now. And the reason why this isn't more readily, instituted, for lack of a better word, we have a society that is so grief and end of life avoidant. It's right. Even, and the support is there. Okay. But it exists in the silos of that support. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's as we go into the world and as we speak about our grief, or as we, so much grief and end of life is not handled in a specific way because of fear around it. And it's conversations like these, and it's experiences like yours, again, as well as your, celebration of life that you do. This is how we make changes to this entire function of life, because to be alive means we have to process death.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way around it. Like there's no way around it. Like I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to say there's something really special and unique, and to use the word beautiful, about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that type of sadness from grief is so specific, and it is okay to feel profound, deep sadness and disorientation around the loss of life, whatever that may be, that was close to you in any way. And we have to create more space for it.
Yeah. I can't agree more, and that's why I just, it's for me, it's like, I even have thought my celebration of life doesn't stop with humans. If someone wants, I would create a celebration of life. I'm actually anticipating doing that with my friend potentially, if she, once she gets to that space, is like, let's do a celebration of life for them, and let's, bring your family together and just, have people just, because they know you, they know your story. They know your journeys with both of your dogs, for the last, 15 years. So it's like, why not celebrate that? So I
wonder if for your friend too, something that's also very meaningful to pet parents is, so much about her pets, and you have such a personal connection there. Perhaps there's something you can do that evokes something personal and tangible from your own knowledge of them, right? And you're such a creative soul. Like, I am certain there is something that you can create if you wanted to, if that's an avenue you chose to do, that could have really deep meaning and maybe elicit a tear as well as a smile.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I shared that one piece of art that I did with you, I believe, when we first met, the big, circle of life or universal life. And that was for a celebration of life. I designed that for a celebration of life. So I'm thinking of doing something for her. Art wise, is creating something that she will always have and can always look at, whether she places it in the yard or keeps it inside or something like that. So I'm right there with you. And I love that you said that, because that's where I am. That's who I am. I love that. So
tell me.
Go on.
No, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to I know I mentioned I booked an hour for us, and I don't know how much time you have. So I just want to be aware of that, but I just love this conversation. I think this conversation is so important to have.
I do too.
So
you tell me. I'm good. Like, if you think you have enough stuff and we're good, then that's great. If you want to keep going, we have 20 more minutes or so. So you tell me whatever you want.
Great. No, I'm all for the whole thing, because it's like, this is so important that we get these words out there and these feelings and these understandings and this new dialogue, because like we spoke before, I'm neurodivergent and I speak a little different, and I see things different, and I see through the chaos or the BS or the interpretation that society has given life that they're supposed to live by. And what we're talking about here is of course, society is giving people, oh, it's just the pet, it's nothing, da 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 da. And people look at that, and I'm like, no, this is a life. We need to, that love and that companion that animal gave the parent, you can't replace that with that, oh, it's just a dog or just a pet. And it just drives me nuts. Yeah.
It drives me nuts too. It's so real. What you're speaking towards is something called disenfranchised grief, which is society's inability to acknowledge the depth of pet loss and the connection that pet parents have to their pets. But what's interesting about what you're saying is society has no problem setting up an entire life for pet parents and celebrating the lives of their pets. And Yes. You know what I mean? Let's bring the pets to work now. How wonderful. We have daycare, we have our dog walkers, we have all of the food you can imagine with all of the options. So there's this own double standard that's happening in that, because this is changing in how we view the life of the pet with the pet parent, the audacity of anybody to turn around and then say, oh, but it's just. So this is a big problem in society that is actively happening at large. And we see this in bereavement support at work. We see this, we see this in a lot of different areas. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
Yeah.
And you just like, but and that's why I loved when we first when we first had our first conversation, which I just fell in love with you. I was just like, oh my God, it's like we just connected.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just love meeting people like yourself and connecting with people like you and sharing what you do with everybody that I know. It's like, I'm on the street all the time and I'm meeting pet parents. We're doing, we've been invited to do this opening of this dog park. And it's like, when I meet people and we talk about this, we, like, I instantly hand out your information. I instantly tell them, go to my YouTube station, look at this YouTube, see what we're talking about. This is another way to look at this, and I give them that tool, and I love that. And that's why I was like, so wanting you on my show is to have you share this information so that people know that there's this choice that they can make. They can choose to visit with you and have a coach, because like, I can't imagine me going through my mom's loss without that person. Without that hospice person. It was a game changer for me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Thank you for saying all of that. Thank you, first of all.
Yeah,
again, thank you. And what's baffling to me, pets passing is not new. Like, none of this is new. So who, again, like, I'm not going to go, I have my own thoughts on it. Not time, not but okay. But
behind the scenes.
That's right. But it's like, this was allowed to happen. We've created this framework.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I think there's, again, I think many things about it, but it is time to acknowledge that this framework doesn't. Could you imagine flipping it and not? Can you imagine? Like, no, but cognitive, like, no, you can't for sure, but actually cognitively think about it. And I think the other thing that's really important to add about this is that if somebody's loss of a pet affects them more than a person, that's okay. We do not get to tell somebody, okay, how their grief exists in real life and how they get to feel from whatever loss they've had to go through. And it doesn't have to take away anything from the loss of a person to acknowledge the depth from the loss of a pet.
Yeah.
The premise of this is not okay. There's many words which I'm not going to use, but a response from a pet parent could be, are you asking me to defend my grief?
Right.
Which, that's ostensibly what's happening when we do this. Yeah. And I'm trying to be really gentle when I communicate it, because I know that it's hard to ingest and take that in. And it's a really big deal. And I understand that it's a big deal, but it's also something that's not okay.
Well, I see, like for me, it's like when, back in 2005, I did this pet rescue event, and it was at the pet rescue event that I was having conversations, and people kept saying to me, God, I wish it was an alternative to Western medicine. It's all chemicals, it's narcotics, and it's steroids. And I
Yeah.
was like, and I thought because I lived in LA and I knew so many people and I've worked in the industry, the entertainment, I thought I knew everybody, and I thought I'd find somebody, that had a product that I could bring into my events for the pets, and I couldn't find anybody. And then I looked at the CBD, and the CBD wasn't kind of like what I was looking for when that first came out in 2015. That was the craze, and everybody was going to the CBD, and it's great, and it's for the right uses, but it's not what I was looking for. I was looking for something that was a full line of products that we address each issue. And I couldn't find it until I came across this Chinese doctor that happened to make a couple of formulas for himself,
Yeah.
for his brother, and he was a Chinese herbalist. And so when he started sharing this with me and I started doing research, these recipes have been around for thousands of years. We just have never used them here in the States. We're just now using them for ourselves in the last decade, 2 decades, and more people are getting more and more on it. But it was never, for pets. And during the Ming Dynasty, they were using it for their pets. But it was that passion, like what you're saying, this was missing in the industry. It wasn't in the industry. And like what you're doing, it hasn't been in the industry. It's not out there, and people need to know this. And that's why it's so important that people like you, with the passion that you have to make that pivotal moment to say, I'm going to go into this area inside the pet industry and make a difference.
Thank you. And I really admire your work as well. It's a similar kind, it's different but similar, but different but similar, and I guess my
Right.
question for you is what did you feel people's reactions were when you first started, this, and how has it changed for you? Because it's a wild ride. So tell me.
Well, it was like, you said it earlier. It was kind of like, you were complimenting me on like the layout and how we talk about it. We, that when we're right now redesigning our website, because like after 5 years, we've learned so much as well, and so, but when we tell when we talk about it, when in the very beginning, I remember we started sharing about it, people were like, what? Eastern herbs for a pet? They're like,
Yeah.
they're like, that's not what, and so we didn't just have like, because they call our product a disruptor to the wellness industry because it wasn't around. And
So
it's,
interesting.
and so we're like the first to the market with what we do with the Chinese herbs on the level and scale that we do it. And so we didn't only have to like break the ceiling with the information, but also the mindset,
Right. Yes.
it's like, this is the big one, is like us having to change the mindset of people saying it's okay. And then now if you look at our reviews, people are always like, oh my God, it's a game changer. And
Wow.
it's not like I created this and my partner and I created the herb, these herbal formulas. These have been around for 1,000 years, but just like what you're doing, these, spirituality and people getting together, celebrating life, that's been around forever as well. It's like, so it's like what we're doing is we're just bringing it into you know, a new space, which it belongs in that new space. You belong in the pet space. Your service is so important inside the pet space that
Thank you.
I love it. I love what you're doing. And I could go on and just rave about you over and over and over. So it's like, it's
Kind.
just,
It's
but
really
it's true. You
thank
know it. It's true. You feel it. It's like, what you're doing is so important, or else you wouldn't be doing it.
wow. It is a bit of a ledge sometimes, right? And you're just standing up there on the ledge like, because you believe it, like your bones tell you you have to believe in this,
Yeah.
and so then it just becomes what you do. And I don't know if you found this, when you start, and I found this with my other company as well. What's so beautiful about doing something like this is the language you develop. And it's that language which becomes really distinguishable. And when you start establishing that as you're standing on the ledge, you know, just putting it out into the world,
Yeah.
that, you know, but it's that language that starts to create the change. And it's that language that people start to be like, hey, no, wait, I might have to listen to this. I may not have wanted to listen to this, but now I know that I have to, because now I'm curious. And I find that part of business ownership and creation very, very dynamic. And also how you know you're doing something that has meaning for you, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
challenge. It's hard.
it's a challenge, like you're saying, on that edge is like, you know, what am I going to say next, and what am I going to say next? Well, what you're going to say next is so important, because you're creating the dialogue, because you're in a new space and people haven't seen this in the new space or in this space. So you're creating that dialogue. So you've got to make sure that that dialogue is spot on, you
Yes.
know, and that's especially for us with our, you know, Eastern herbal formulas. Our dialogue has to be spot on, you know,
Me too.
because we're creating that dialogue. You know, people are now
Yeah.
coming to us for that dialogue, and they're like, oh my God, how does this really work? Tell me more, tell me more. And we're like, okay, let's give you more information. And it's just like, so you're the master of what you're doing. So being on that edge, I think sometimes that edge helps to push us into refining.
I think so. That's so us. Please keep going. I'm so sorry. No,
No,
keep
no, no,
going.
go on. No, that's where I want to put it. Yeah.
No, I think you're 100% correct. This is interesting because this is the second conversation of somebody that I've had, and also a creator like you know, in a new category, right? Sure, as the
Hmm.
Parted Paw, as you said, thank you so much. And he said, you know, when I first started doing this, nobody was doing it. You know, and now whatever I don't cite people and I don't do that, but whatever he did is like every single person in the industry does it now. But he was one of the first ones to do it. And it's like same thing like you're saying, you know, he was on the edge. You were on the edge when you started doing this. And same thing with the Parted Paw. And it's I don't know. It's beyond you. At a certain point, it is like, it's not that it's beyond you, but it's beyond you not doing it.
Oh yeah, it's like it's I just have to. It's like it was like, you know, being neurodivergent. It's like I come up, you know, I see situations that need a solution, and so my brain automatically starts looking for solutions, and that's what got me here. You know,
Love
as
it.
I was looking for that solution that people were looking for, that all natural formulas that help the wellness of pets, and it's like it was out there in all these different little ways, but it wasn't like a strong presence saying, here we are, this is how it works, and this is the formulas, and let's walk you through the steps on what you need. I mean, it's never been like this. And so it's like, um, I don't know. I just think it's like, you know, I kind of just lost my thought there for a second, but it's like, I feel like, you know, what you're doing is like when you do see someone else come along, like you said, like when you first started, there was not many people, or there was no people doing what you were doing. And I agree with that, because like, you know, I don't see it out there, you know, and like I was on Clubhouse for 2 years doing my shows, and you know, I came across a psychic for pets, but I never got someone that's a doula, and it's, you know, that walks through the way you do and working with people the way you do. So, you know, but the thing that I've like taken in is like I almost invite other people to do what I do, because there's so many pets out there that needs help. I can't get to every single pet.
I love what you just said. I'm first of all, yes, and here's why. Because, and in any business I've been an entrepreneur for, I can't believe how long I've been an entrepreneur. Let's leave it there. But the reality is there's no competition. I don't believe in the term, because there's enough pets and there's enough things of need that there's enough room. Everybody can create everything. There's another pet loss bereavement specialist and doula and certified coach doing this. Great. Somebody else gets to get help. Maybe we can work together. Maybe we can find ways to share the same ideas differently and reach more people. It's like this idea of competition. The pet industry has a lot of competition, by the way. It is very competitive.
Yes.
I don't know if you found that or not. Not everybody, and that doesn't matter. But there's a lot of people who aren't competitive as well. But those are the people who I really enjoy connecting with and collaborating with. And that's the lens that kind of the Parted Paw is footed in. You know, I see it in a very similar way that you do.
Right. Well, I felt that when I first met you. So we're on that same path. And and to be on this path, especially, I mean, for me, like what you do is so personal and so deep in someone's life. And it's like it's like if I could take you and put you in my pocket and take you everywhere I go, and every time I meet someone that I could pull you out and say, "Here, talk to her," here she is, and
So
that's and that's what I like to. That's what I kind of feel like the pet's journey is going to be one day. It's going to be that resource center where people can actually go and find your information and contact you and just say, and listen to you here to get. So hopefully this breaks down any kind of like maybe nerves that they might have about reaching out or feeling like maybe, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. No,
yeah,
you should be doing that.
it's really interesting you say that. There's a lot of grief that stays where it is because of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't
So
move. Yeah.
doesn't move. It stays. And grief needs a plan, and grief needs a routine, and grief needs change of habits. And if we're not, I love that you communicated that. Thank you so much. And if we're not talking about it when we're ready, sometimes when we're not, there's no rush. Okay. But if we're not at a point where we're talking about it, how do we continue to move forward and move with our beloved pet that has passed?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. 100. Yeah. We have to talk about it. We
Yeah.
have to. We have. It's so important. So we're at the 50 minute. I could go forever, all day.
I
You
know.
know
No,
me.
we're good. I think I could go forever too. Honestly, I totally agree.
So
Oh
I
my
want
God.
to do this thing. I want to do this thing with you really quick, okay? And it
Okay.
just popped in my head, okay?
Okay.
I sent you some information earlier, and there were some questions on there, and I thought, if we can explore these really quick, like, if I give you a line and you give me what instantly comes into your
Rapid
thought,
fire.
okay? Exactly. You ready? Ready?
Hold on. Wait. Okay. You can
Get
have
your
it.
lips on, okay?
Okay. No, thank you. Okay. I'm ready. Go.
Okay. We kind of already talked about this first one, but I'll let you do this. I'll have you do this again. Okay. So why why grief can intensify months after loss?
There's no timeline to
Why?
grief. There's no timeline to grief. We don't get to dictate when a memory of our beloved pet is going to cross our path at any time. And what that actually is called a grief burst. There's language around it. And it is a deep connection in knowing that something in your heart, mind, and soul just registered to your beloved pet that has passed. It is okay. Have your moment and cry and lean into it and try to connect to your sadness and to love at the same time.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. The identity shift that happens when they're no longer a caregiver to their pets. What's that identity that they go through?
It's actually identity lost more than a shift. I'm going to take it, I'm going to escalate it for you
I love that. Okay.
because our pets define our physical life, they define our home life, they define our life outside of work, they define our social life, they define our financial world. When we lose our beloved pet, how can every part of our identity not be affected given the examples I just said? To expect otherwise is simply bizarre.
So true. Beautiful. Um, this is the big one. Guilt around medical decisions and euthanasia.
We are the ambassadors of our pet's life and death. Society doesn't talk about it, and it deeply hinders pet parents' ability to know that when you purchase a pet, you are signing up for that decision, and that euthanasia is the greatest act of love you can provide when end of life is no other option.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, I always kind of feel like with that whole thing too, it's like when, you know, if I hit a point in my life that I feel like my quality of life is, give me something. I mean,
I
that's my personal feeling.
I agree. I agree. And so often our pets are, but they are looking at us to make that decision for them. And they've trusted us with their entire lives. Please know they are trusting you with their end of life too.
Hmm. What do you say about, you know, you go through silence and then your routine, and then all of a sudden you get these triggers? How do you work with the triggers?
Triggers around what are you speaking about specifically?
Well, like, let's say I'm going to a mall. Okay, instantly I think of my friend. We go to the Century City Mall, and we take him for a walk, right? So then all of a sudden now we go to the mall for lunch and we don't have the dogs. That could be a huge trigger for her
Yeah.
in that sense. And so how do you work around those? How do you have people work around those triggers and work through those triggers?
Yeah. So you answer part of it. First of all, you work with it. We know in grief literacy and language that the adaptation of without needs to happen. So it's like exposure therapy. First time really hard, second time better, third time okay. And we work within a framework like that. And also something that is very helpful that people are completely unaware of, to actually create a plan, if you know what a trigger is going to be, will help you get through the trigger without being triggered.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay. Um, Continuing bonds with
Mhm.
your lost pet. Why healing doesn't mean moving on.
You can never move on. You can,
Yeah.
there's nothing that can convince me otherwise. And that is not, and the problem is we have this ethos in society. This touches into disenfranchised grief again, that you just can just move on. And that simply is hogwash and malarkey, for lack of better words. It doesn't exist. And the more that you can drop that framework immediately is the more you can connect to knowing that love and loss can coexist at the same time.
Same
And
time.
the more that we can exist it and lean into that, everything becomes blurred in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, really.
And it's not so harsh after a while. And it's like a new tree with roots and new soil and fresh water gets to grow there.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, okay, so my last, let's say, so when we've talked about this, grief is nothing to be fixed. We can't fix grief. Grief is an experience. It's, we go through it, we walk through it, we hold, it's just part of our life, and I think that if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have love, in a sense. So in closing, and everything that we've talked about today, is there an area or something that we didn't touch on that you just want to be able to share with people to, bring that light around that subject?
It just somehow we've walked into this place where, feeling so connected to some, in this instance here, our pets, and then losing them, that it's shameful to feel as deeply as we do. And if there is one thing, and there's so many things I communicate, but if there's one thing I would say is that that connection and that sadness and that loss has so much deep meaning. And it is the only place you need to be. And that being in that place is not for forever. So be sad. Sit with your sadness. It's beautiful and it has meaning, and it's going to take you where you need to go next. And it's going to make you very strong. That's a foot and a communication I think more pet parents need to know.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I couldn't agree more. It's like I was so looking forward to this moment with you and having this conversation, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
Can't wait.
Um, Yes, because like it would be, I would love to create some sort of like, every month or what if you wanted to, like some sort of like where we just created like when I was on Clubhouse, I would have reoccurring guests all the time and we would continue the conversation and then kind of do like a work thing or whatever where people can actually get in and start doing some work around that
Yeah.
conversation with us. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and reaching out. I've truly, enjoyed our conversations. Today has been so special. And I just look forward to speaking with you again. And if people reach out to you, I'm going to have your name, your email, and all that down below in this description. Is there anything else that you want to say about reaching out to you or anything like that?
Well, first, I want to thank you so much. And meeting you has been such a delight. And I'm a huge supporter of your company and what you do. So that's the first thing I want to say. And I can sit and talk with you about this anytime you want. I think you're a really bright light. And I can be reached at the information where you're going to put it. And you can go to my LinkedIn. You can find me at my name here. It's Koryn, last name Greenspan. The Parted Paw is on TikTok. And like, I'm trying to understand Instagram. I don't think I ever will, but the Parted Paw is on Instagram as well. So, so you can find us any of those places.
Yeah, this all these different technologies. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm lucky. My husband gets it, so I get to like bounce it all off of him. But just that you're here is the most important thing. Is you're out there, you're doing this. My biggest thing for you right now is I'm like, in my head, the one thing that keeps going is like I'm like, when's the book coming out?
Oh, that's so cool. People ask me this a lot. I don't know if it's going to be a book, but there is something in the works, and
Good.
There's something in the works. That's what I can say right now.
Beautiful.
You'll be the first to know when it comes to market, though.
I love it. Maybe we can like debut it to this audience together. Okay.
I would love that too. What an opportunity. Thank you for that.
Well, have a beautiful day.
You too.
I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much. And thank you for being part of our atmosphere. It's so important that you're here, and it's so important that people know that you're here. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you. I'm grateful to know you and to be here, and you as well.
Okay, we'll see each other soon. All right, guys, everybody have a great day. Come back to the Pets Journey for more information about life, food, health, wealth, whatever about pets. We're here and diving into just enjoying our union with our pet and giving our pet the best possible life. All right, guys, I'm Michael. I'm out. Have a blessed day. Friend, thank you again. Have a nice day. All right. Bye, guys.